So today I'd like to talk about this tweak I came across that I found worthy of a conversation. This is a linear power supply, an external one, and it's from JCAT, and I use it with my Exasound reference DAC. Now some of you might not be able to use an external power supply in your current system, but after watching today's video, it might give you something to think about. Now the problem with talking about a linear power supply is there is really not much to talk about because it is a tweak. Either it works or not. And if it does work, how much of an improvement? So the video will be over in 3 minutes if I just talk about the JCAT linear power supply. How I define tweaks. It is nice to have, but not a need to have. Cables, DAC, preamp, amp, and speakers are not tweaks because you need them in your system to work. Now, given this is not going to be a long video, I hope, why don't I spend a bit of time showing you some of the other tweaks I've come across that might be interesting or helpful to you. And then I'll finish the video off with the JCAT Initio 3 linear power supply. I hope that's how you pronounce it, JCAT. Now, before we begin, I have this habit of categorizing things. For me, there are audiophiles that can hear nuances, and you have the normal audiophiles that put a bit more effort than regular people in setting up their audio system. And then you have the normal people, like my wife, who only cares about the music. So she's fine just listening with speakers on her cell phone. Now, an audiophile who is into nuances will be like my audio buddy, Mr. Cantor and Mr. Vintage. Now, they can hear differences, believe it or not, even if you change the speaker cable connectors. Me, I'm more the normal type, but I can pick up nuances because of my years of training in the shouting temple of audiophiles. Now, I might not be like shouting monks who can hear a leaf falling on the ground, but I understand nuances. Now, one day I should make a video on how I got trained to listen to cables. You might not expect this, but I've given up on critical listening, and these days I just enjoy the music. Now, having said that, after years of critical listening training, it becomes second nature. So I can still pick up nuances without a lot of effort. Now, with this mindset, my rule is this: if I can't hear a difference easily, then as far as I'm concerned, there is no difference. If I spent $3,000 on something, I want to hear it easily. Now, tweaks are meant to enhance the sound of your system, but usually it does not change the sound drastically. So I myself don't use tweaks. Now, regardless, I've come across a lot of tweaks, and although I don't really use them, let me show you what I have. So the first tweak I want to talk about is this mini DSP. Now, I believe room correction works due to my experience with Lindorff products. Now, in my past video, the Lindorff 1120 video, I mentioned I was quite surprised with how much of an improvement room correction made to my system. So that's why I got this mini DSP, and it's only 200 bucks. And this might be a great solution for some of you who are struggling with room problems. So does this mini DSP work? I have no idea. I bought it and I've never used it because I have no time. Now, if I do, I might make a video on it in the future. Now, the next tweak is interesting. It's this Siltech cable cooker. Now, my friend once lent it to me, and we call it the cable cooker because that's how we call it in Chinese. Now, if you Google Siltech Blue Horizon cable burner, now you should be able to find more details. Now, don't quote me on it, as I was told by my buddy how this works, and I never bother checking if it's true or not. The concept is this. The concept is your amp is only able to generate a certain level of current, so your cables can never truly break in, while this cable cooker can generate a higher current, which as a result truly breaks in your cable and opens up the sound further. Now, I know a lot of you are probably rolling your eyes. Not only some people don't believe cables make a sonic difference, now we have a cable cooker. Some of you probably are thinking, man, this is like the next level snake oil. So, does the cable cooker work? How did it sound after I broke in my cables with high current? I have no idea because I didn't even bother trying it. And I just gave it back after having borrowed it for weeks. Now my logic is this. Even if hypothetically it did make a difference, I would rather spend $2,000 on a better amp, for example. Now I'm not saying it does not work. I'm just saying it did not excite me enough to try. If you want me to really test it and make a video on it, put it in the comments. If I get 2,000 likes, I will consider doing it. I'm putting an unattainable goal of 2,000 likes because between you and me, I know that video will have a lot of drama. Next are these isolators, decoupler, I don't know what they're called, but you get these to put under your DAC or preamp. And supposedly it should affect the sound of your system. But once again, I've never tried it, even though I have a lot at my home. Now, if you're curious, you can get these Super Spikes isolator from Everest Audio. So let me put up here on screen. Now, talking about Everest Audio, they also sent me a set of speaker Super Spikes. Now, spikes for speakers do work. Now, they do change the sound of your speaker, and if you don't have speakers on spikes, you can give it a try. Now, mostly it tightens up the bass. Now, I like these Super Spikes because I move my speakers around a lot and I have wooden floors. So with these spikes, I can easily push them around. Now, I'll put a link to the site and yeah, they're affordable. I'm not affiliated with them. Now, how do they compare to normal spikes, these Super Spikes? I don't know because I never A/B tested them. So now let's move on to the main topic, the JCAT Initio 3 linear power supply. Now, first of all, just by touching the packaging, I knew I was not looking at budget gear. According to the website, it is available in 12 volts or 5 volts, and it works with any components up to 3 amps. It comes with one audio grade DC cable, and no, I like the fact that you can power 2 units with it if you buy an extra DC cable. You know what I find funny? Is they did not even give me a power cable. I guess if you're using something of this caliber, you are expected to use an aftermarket cable. Now, between you and me, okay, I prefer that to them including a $2 power cable like that $20,000 Bell Canto integrated amp I recently reviewed. That one came with a $2 power cable, and yes, I know, if you're buying a $20,000 amp, you are expected to use an aftermarket cable. Now, I've always been searching for a linear power supply for my DAC, the Exasound E28. Because in the manual of this DAC, it clearly states that the sound will improve if I get a better power supply. Now, if you look at the stock one, it probably costs like 20 bucks. And therefore, I was quite excited to try this JCAT Initio 3. So let's start with the negatives. So the only thing you have to be careful is you better send them the exact measurement of the connectors you're using. Now, my first one was too small, and my current one is slightly loose. I should have measured it. I should have measured my original power supply and gave them the measurements. Besides that, I can't really think of any other negatives. So let's move on. A while ago, I made a video on an external power supply, and it did improve the sound of my DAC slightly. I've sent back that unit already, and I've been using the stock power supply for a while. Now, once I received this JCAT linear power supply, I did not even bother testing it, and I dropped it off at my audio buddy's place, Mr. Quad, and I didn't tell him anything about this power supply. I just asked him, listen. Eventually, I got a message from him telling me, dude, you got to come over to listen to this. I know from my past experience, a linear power supply should improve the sound, but by how much? With tweaks, you need to almost go into a semi-meditation state to really hear the differences. So I went over, and I remember that day was the first time I listened at his place ever since the pandemic started. It was exciting for 2 reasons. A chance to listen again to my audio buddy system, and second, I get to hear my DAC in a nice, fully treated room with a very transparent system. So just like every time I listen to tweaks, I had to prepare myself. I go in this Zen state where I calm my heart down so I can pick up the subtle differences. And hopefully, it would justify the asking price of $1,000 USD for this power supply. As the music started, closed my eyes, and then 10 seconds later I opened my eyes and gave Mr. Quad this WTF look. I was shocked. I didn't need to go into meditation to hear the differences. It was night and day, water and fire, black and white. Well, you get the idea. Mr. Quad told me, yep, it reminded him of when he upgraded his name amp. And at the time he used a better power supply and the change was mind-blowing. For Mr. Quad, he felt every aspect of my DAC improved, and if I have to pinpoint the differences, the bass is richer, the soundstage slightly wider, and everything is more precise. Now, I don't know if today's sound demo can showcase this. As Mr. Quad put it, it is as if my DAC has grown up. Now, when we switch back to the original power supply, I felt like I just went from FM to AM radio. Of course, part of the reason I claim such a big difference is because my audio buddies and I have developed the skills to listen for nuances. I'm not saying it is as dramatic as changing a speaker, but it will be really hard for me to not buy this JCAT unit. I hope I get a good deal from it if I decide to buy it. So later on, another audio buddy of mine, Loic, dropped by to pick up something. I forgot what it was. And while he was at my place, I told him, hey man, you got to try my DAC with this linear power supply. Usually, I try to avoid telling my audio buddies the price or anything when I ask them to test it for me. Sometimes they would test like $150 stuff, and other times $20,000+ stuff. It's more fun to take the price out of the equation when evaluating gear. A few days later, I got a message from Loic, and he had that WTF moment just like me. So let me put on screen my conversation with him. In short, he would buy it if the Exasound DAC was his. Now please keep this in mind, this experience only applies to the Exasound E28 and might not be the same with your DAC. Why? Maybe the power supply of your current DAC is pretty good already, and an upgraded power supply might not make a huge difference like mine. The only way to know is to try it. Unfortunately, you have a 2-week trial period. Just confirm with them. Now, obviously, it would only make sense if your DAC, is more than $3,000, since this power supply is like $1,000 USD. I think the takeaway is clean power does make a big difference. There are many affordable aftermarket power supply out there, and if you have something that can use one, hey, perhaps it is a tweak you can explore. Now, for those of you who follow me, for my stereo system, I have a dedicated electric line for it. Now, thanks to Tony, a subscriber of mine, for installing it. And, believe it or not, it is not that expensive. Well, Tony didn't charge me anything, but it might bring more of an upgrade to your system than spending of hundreds of dollars on tweaks elsewhere. So, let's wrap it up at this point. Now, I did not go over all the details, such as the spec of the unit, because you can check them out. You can check them out on your own. JCAT does have other tweaks, and my audio buddy, Mr. First Watt, told me JCAT USB cards are quite popular in the media server DIY community. Now, there are many other tweaks I've tried, and I did not show in today's video. Let me just show you a picture, for example. Right? Isolation platform for turntables, IKEA boards, audiophile power bars, power filters, etc. And most of them, I never use them because for me, tweaks usually don't do much. And if they do, they improve the sound just a bit. So that is why for me, this power supply blew me away because the improvement was not subtle. And this made me want to try other more expensive or even more affordable external power supply out there. I wonder at what price point I have to drop to for external power supply to make no significant difference. Yeah, I guess that will be, for another video. Okay, I think this is it. Don't forget to like if you want me to review that rice cooker. Well, cable cooker. I need 2,000 likes, and of course, don't forget to hit the notification bell after subscribing. Finally, tell me which tweaks worked for you the most. I think that's it. Yeah. Till next time.